The vibrant colors of food trucks lined the street like a carnival of culinary delights. It was one of those perfect summer days in the city, where the air carried a mixture of spices, grilled meats, and sweet desserts. I've been looking forward to this food truck festival for weeks, marking it on my calendar with a little heart emoji, a private admission of my love affair with street food. My name is Alex, and I've always been the type to seek out new flavors, new experiences. My friends joke that my dating life is as adventurous as my palate, sometimes spicy, sometimes sweet, but always interesting. I wandered through the festival alone that day, taking my time to absorb everything. I'm not the type who needs company to enjoy myself. In fact, I prefer these solo adventures sometimes, free to linger at whatever catches my interest without worrying about someone else's patience wearing thin. I was wearing my favorite blue button-down shirt, sleeves rolled up to my elbows, and my lucky food festival jeans, the ones with the slightly stretchy waistband. Hey, I'm practical if nothing else. The festival was bustling with energy. Children ran between the trucks with sticky fingers and wide smiles. Couples fed each other bites of shared dishes, and food enthusiasts like myself took photos of particularly photogenic meals. I was in my element, breathing in deeply and letting my senses guide me. That's when I spotted it. A bright red food truck with flames painted along the sides and a sign that read, "Inferno Slices. Are you brave enough?" Let me explain why this particular truck caught my attention. I've always had this theory that you can tell a lot about a person by how they handle spicy food. It's not about tolerance. Some people simply have different physiological reactions to capsaicin. What interests me is the approach. Do they dive in fearlessly? Do they take small, cautious bites? Do they pretend it's not affecting them when their face is clearly turning red? It's a character study in miniature. I approached the truck, drawn by both the challenge and the mouth-watering aroma of wood-fired pizza. The menu was simple. Just one type of pizza available, their signature devil's slice, topped with spicy marinara, 3 types of chilies, pepper-infused oil, and something mysteriously labeled ghost pepper dust. The woman at the counter, her dark hair pulled back in a bandana, raised an eyebrow when I ordered. "You sure about that?" "It's not for beginners," she warned with a knowing smile. "I think I can handle it," I replied, trying to sound more confident than I felt. In truth, my spice tolerance was decent but not legendary. Still, what's life without a little risk? As she prepared my slice, I became aware of someone standing beside me. I glanced over and immediately felt a flutter in my chest. He was slightly taller than me, with warm brown skin and the kind of smile that created dimples deep enough to get lost in. His dark curly hair was cut short on the sides but left longer on top, and he wore a simple white t-shirt that somehow looked anything but simple on his frame. "Is it really as hot as they say?" he asked, nodding toward the pizza being prepared. His voice had a slight rasp to it, like someone who laughs often and deeply. "I'm about to find out," I replied, trying to sound casual despite the sudden awareness of how I was standing, how my hair looked, whether there was any food on my face from previous trucks. "Mind if I join you in this adventure?" he asked. "I'm Marco, by the way." "Alex," I responded, extending my hand for a shake that lingered just a moment longer than necessary. "And sure, misery loves company, right?" Marco laughed, the sound warming me more than any spicy food could. Or maybe I just want to witness someone else's suffering before I commit. The woman behind the counter handed me my slice on a paper plate. The pizza looked innocent enough, a beautiful, perfectly baked crust with bubbling cheese and flecks of red and green from the various peppers. But the aroma rising from it carried a warning. This was not going to be a gentle experience. Marco ordered his own slice, and we moved to one of the standing tables nearby. I noticed he had a small camera hanging around his neck, the kind photography enthusiasts carry. "Are you here to eat or document?" I asked, nodding toward the camera. "Both," he admitted with a sheepish grin. "I run a food blog. Nothing fancy, just my way of keeping track of the best places I find. But today, I might be more interested in documenting human reactions to extreme spice." I laughed. "So I'm your guinea pig?" "Only if you take the first bite," he challenged, his eyes twinkling. I looked down at my slice, took a deep breath, and bit into the tip. For a split second, there was just the perfect combination of cheese, sauce, and crispy crust. Then it hit me, a wave of heat that spread from my tongue to my lips and seemed to radiate through my entire face. I managed to chew and swallow, but I couldn't hide my reaction, eyes watering, face flushing. "That bad?" Marco asked, looking both amused and concerned. "It's..." I paused to take a sip of water, which did absolutely nothing to help. "Intense." but actually delicious underneath the fire. Marco looked down at his own slice with new respect. Then, maintaining eye contact with me, he took a bite that was significantly larger than mine had been. I watched as his expression changed, first appreciation, then surprise, then the unmistakable look of someone whose mouth was suddenly filled with liquid fire. "Holy!" he gasped after swallowing, reaching for his water bottle. "You weren't kidding." We both burst out laughing, united in our shared pain and the absurdity of voluntarily putting ourselves through it. There's something incredibly bonding about suffering through spicy food together. All pretense drops away when your face is red and your eyes are watering. "I think I need something to counteract this," Marco said, fanning his mouth. "Want to split a milkshake from that truck over there?" And that's how we ended up sharing not just a slice of Hellfire pizza, but also a vanilla milkshake with 2 straws, like something out of a 1950s romance. We took turns taking small bites of the pizza followed by cooling sips of the shake. The contrast was incredible, the burning heat of the pizza against the soothing cold of the vanilla. It was like a sensory roller coaster. "So, Alex," Marco said between bites, "what brings you to a food festival alone? No friends who share your culinary adventurousness?" "I like exploring on my own sometimes," I admitted. "My friends are great, but they tend to rush through things. I like to take my time, really experience each bite, each moment." I paused, suddenly feeling like I'd revealed too much of myself. "What about you? Just here for the blog?" Marco shook his head. "The blog is just an excuse. I'm actually here because food brings people together in a way nothing else does. Everyone eats, you know? It's the most universal experience we have." He gestured around at the diverse crowd. "Look at all these different people sharing the same joy. It's beautiful." I studied him, trying to determine if he was being genuine or if this was some practiced line he used. But his eyes held that earnest quality that couldn't be faked. He really meant it. "That's actually really lovely," I said. "I've never thought about it quite that way." We continued talking as we finished our shared meal. I learned that Marco was a graphic designer by day but passionate about photography and food. He traveled extensively through Southeast Asia and Latin America, following his taste buds to remote villages and bustling markets. I told him about my job as an environmental scientist, my collection of hot sauces from around the world, and my terrible habit of singing in the shower. The conversation flowed easily, punctuated by occasional winces as the spice from the pizza reasserted itself. At one point, Marco reached out and brushed his thumb across the corner of my mouth. "Sorry," he said, his voice softer. "You had a bit of sauce there." The brief contact sent a different kind of heat through me, one that had nothing to do with ghost pepper dust. "Thanks," I managed, aware that my cheeks were probably red again, but for entirely different reasons. "You know," Marco said, leaning in slightly, "I think the sauce isn't the only thing spicy here." The line was so unexpected, so delightfully cheesy, that I couldn't help but laugh. "Did you really just say that?" Marco's dimples deepened as he grinned. "Too much?" "I've been told my flirting skills are a bit rusty." "I didn't say I didn't like it," I replied, surprising myself with my boldness. "Just that it was unexpected." "Well, unexpected can be good, right? Like finding out you enjoy setting your mouth on fire with ghost pepper pizza." We finished our shared milkshake, but neither of us seemed ready to part ways. Marco glanced at his watch, then back at me. "There are at least 15 more trucks I haven't tried yet," he said. "Care to join me for round 2? I promised to find something less likely to cause permanent damage to our taste buds." How could I refuse? We set off together, weaving through the crowd, our shoulders occasionally brushing in a way that felt both casual and electric. Marco insisted we try a Korean fusion truck next, where we shared bulgogi tacos topped with kimchi and a gochujang aioli that was spicy, but in a more manageable, complex way. "See? Not all spice has to be about pain," Marco explained as we savored the tacos. "It's about layers of flavor, about how the heat complements the other elements." I watched him as he spoke, fascinated by his passion. When someone loves something, truly loves it, they glow when they talk about it. Marco was practically radiant discussing the nuances of different chili peppers and regional spice preferences. We continued our culinary tour, sharing dishes from each truck: Jamaican jerk chicken skewers, Indian chaat with tangy tamarind and mint chutneys, Vietnamese banh mi with pickled vegetables and cilantro. At each stop, we took turns choosing, and I noticed how Marco would watch my face as I took my first bite, genuinely interested in my reaction. Between food trucks, we learned more about each other. Marco told me about growing up in a large family where meals were the centerpiece of every gathering. I shared stories about my grandmother teaching me to cook traditional recipes before she passed away. We discovered a mutual love for old black and white movies and a shared inability to keep houseplants alive. The afternoon sun began to soften into early evening, casting a golden glow over the festival. We found ourselves at a dessert truck, sharing a plate of churros dusted with cinnamon sugar and dipped in dark chocolate sauce. Sweet after spicy, Marco said, watching as I closed my eyes to better appreciate the contrast. The perfect ending. But I didn't want it to end. The thought surprised me with its intensity. I'd come to this festival expecting to enjoy some good food alone, and instead I'd found, what exactly? A connection? The beginning of something? There's a small park just a block from here, I suggested, trying to sound casual. We could walk off some of this food before heading home. Marco's smile told me he understood what I was really asking. Lead the way. We left the festival behind, carrying the last of our churros and a shared bottle of horchata. The park was quiet compared to the bustling festival, with just a few people walking dogs or sitting on benches. We found a spot under a large oak tree, its leaves creating patterns of light and shadow on the grass. I have a confession, Marco said as we settled onto the grass. I saw you earlier, before the pizza truck. You were at the Ethiopian stand, and you looked so completely happy tasting that injera bread. I actually followed you to the pizza place. I raised my eyebrows. Should I be flattered or concerned? He laughed, running a hand through his curls. Flattered, I hope. I saw someone who seemed to experience food the way I do, with their whole being. It's rare. So you decided to use deadly spicy pizza as your conversation starter? It worked, didn't it? His eyes met mine, and there was something vulnerable in them now. I'm really glad it did. The air between us felt charged, like the moment before a summer storm. I was acutely aware of how close we were sitting, how easy it would be to lean just a little closer. You know, I said softly, I've always believed that sharing food with someone creates a special kind of intimacy. You're literally experiencing the same tastes, the same sensations at the same time. Marco nodded, his expression thoughtful. It's one of the most honest ways to connect with another person. There's no pretense when you're both sweating from ghost pepper dust. We laughed, and somehow that broke the tension. Marco reached out and took my hand, his thumb tracing small circles on my palm. I don't usually do this, he said. Meet someone and feel so comfortable so quickly. It usually takes me forever to open up to people. Me too, I admitted. But there's something about nearly dying from spicy pizza together that accelerates the bonding process. The sun was setting now, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink that reminded me of some of the sauces we'd tasted that day. Marco shifted closer, and I could smell the faint scent of his cologne mixed with the lingering aromas of our food adventure. Alex, he said, my name sounding different in his voice, more significant somehow. I'd really like to kiss you right now. But I should warn you, I probably still taste like a combination of 15 different cuisines. I couldn't help but smile. That sounds like the most interesting kiss I'll ever have. And then his lips were on mine, soft and warm. The kiss was gentle at first, tentative, but then deepened with a hint of the passion that had been building between us all day. He was right. I could taste the faint sweetness of churros and chocolate, the warmth of spices, the complexity of all we'd shared. But mostly, I tasted him, and it was better than any food I'd ever experienced. When we finally pulled apart, I felt slightly dazed, as if I'd tasted something that altered my perception. Marco looked equally affected, his eyes darker, his breathing slightly uneven. Definitely spicy, he murmured, making me laugh again. We stayed in the park until the stars came out, talking, sharing occasional kisses, and planning our next culinary adventure. Marco insisted I needed to try his grandmother's homemade tamales, and I countered that he hadn't lived until he'd tasted my special 5-alarm chili. As the evening grew cooler, we reluctantly decided it was time to head home. Standing at the park entrance, exchanging phone numbers and promises to meet again soon, I marveled at how a simple food festival had turned into one of the most memorable days of my life. So, Marco said, his fingers intertwined with mine, same time next weekend? I know a place that makes the most incredible Malaysian laksa. It might make today's pizza seem mild by comparison. It's a date, I replied, loving how his face lit up at my answer. But this time, maybe we skip the ghost pepper dust and focus more on the getting to know each other part. Deal, he said, leaning in for one more kiss. Though I have to say, I'm pretty grateful to that spicy slice for bringing us together. As I walked home that night, my lips still tingling from the kisses or the residual spice, I couldn't tell. I thought about how the best things in life often come when you're not looking for them. I'd gone to a food festival looking for new flavors and instead found a connection that promised to be as rich, complex, and occasionally spicy as the foods we'd shared. Sometimes, the sauce isn't the only thing that's spicy. Sometimes, it's the unexpected chemistry that catches fire when you least expect it, turning an ordinary day into the beginning of something extraordinary. And as any good chef knows, the best recipes are often discovered by accident, just like the best romances. Total_char_count, 17,842.